What's up, comic book community? My name is Joe, and this is 360 Comics. This past weekend was King Kon, located in Iselin, New Jersey. It is the third time they've hosted this event, the second time that I've been able to go to it, and the first time that I've been there in a seller capacity. I sold a ton of comic books. I made some really awesome trades, and I bought stuff from some of the other dealers, all of which I'm going to show you today, including an absolute GRAIL, a really rare book that I've been looking for a long time that I was able to get in a multi-step trade. So stay tuned for all that and more. We're currently running 2 giveaways, and I'm going to be picking a winner for both of them this Sunday live on Instagram. I had to take last week off of YouTube because I was way too busy with other stuff, and I never picked a winner for the previous week's weekly giveaway, which was this book right here, Ultimate Spider-Man number 160, Death of Peter Parker. So make sure you check out the videos from that week, like them, and leave a comment on them for entries into this. And you got to be subscribed to the channel too. For this week, we're going to be giving away Justice Society of America number 3 with this Alex Ross cover featuring Cyclone. We're going to be seeing her on the screen soon, so I figured it would be a great time to give away this book. Remember, you have to subscribe to the channel, like our videos, and leave comments on them for entries, and turn on those notifications so you know when the next videos are coming out. Good luck. All right, here we go, walking into the main room of King Kon number 3. And if you've never been to this show before, you'll notice it is just wall-to-wall comics. It is an old-school comic book convention for the comic book lover. I know some people are into toys and pops and stuff like that, but there really wasn't much of that here at all, mainly just comic books. We got the Pressable Defects doing one of their live giveaways that they did throughout the day, and everywhere you look, long boxes and short boxes full of comics, and of course some really impressive, amazing walls full of bigger keys and grails. We got Street Side Anthony back here, and this entire back wall was taken up by Very Gary Comics. Heading on into the auxiliary room here, we've got my buddy Jim, Bronzeville Comics. Definitely check him out on social media if you haven't yet. And caddy quarter from him, my table right over here, Popa Chili Town manning the booth. We've got priced sets. I had dollar bin books and $3 books, and if you bought multiples, I always give discounts. And then the $5 books, same deal with those. A bunch of bins of priced books. Those are all $7 and up. Some magazines, slabs, and of course, you can't have a comic book show without some really nice wall books. I offered 10% off everything, and I think that went really well for me because people were able to pick up some bigger books at a discount. I was busy at my table most of the day, so I didn't have a lot of time to go shopping for myself, but I did find a few minutes here and there to dig through some dollar bins and check out some wall books. So let's take a look at what I got, starting off with the 5 best dollar bin books that I found during King Kon. First up, we've got My Greatest Adventure number 49. This is an early Silver Age DC book. This was before Doom Patrol later took over the title, both being introduced in this run and then the title eventually just changing to the Doom Patrol title. I wasn't going to pass this up for $1, an early, 10 center from DC Comics. Then next we've got Reptile number 1, not his first appearance, but his first solo book, which is something that people pick up if they can't find or can't afford the first appearance. And it is the first appearance of 2 of his cousins, one of them who joins the Strange Academy. So definitely some potential there with these characters. And for $1, not going to pass that up. This book came out pretty recently, but has, kind of held some value at definitely more than cover price. And, easy pickup for $1. Then we've got Sentry number 2. Now, Sentry number 1, very expensive book for the time it came out. Sells for like about $100 in high grade. But, those second appearances end up creeping up once the first appearance gets high enough. So this is a great book, in my opinion, to pick up, especially for just $1, because, first of all, it sells for about 10. And second of all, we haven't seen this character yet. We certainly could at some point, which would cause, the price to go up even more. Then I was very surprised to see this. We've got some Frank Miller Daredevil. Did not expect to see that in, a dollar bin, but I found some. It's not the highest grade copy, but it is a classic cover featuring Elektra. And you can't go wrong with Miller Daredevil, especially the first run like this book. Speaking of that first Miller Daredevil run, the other book in this bunch of 5 is another Miller Daredevil book, number 176. This is the first appearance of Stick. That's a major Daredevil character, the person who trained both Daredevil and Elektra. He was featured pretty prominently in at least one season of the Netflix show. We might see him again now that we know that the Daredevil Born Again is a reboot. It is not a continuation. It could be a character that we see again. Who knows? Only time will tell. That's it for the dollar bin stuff, but we've got some other things. In fact, only one other book that I purchased. There are some trades coming, but first, I gotta show you this. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 37, the first appearance of Norman Osborn. I think this book is really undervalued, really underrated, and it's probably because the cover is pretty goofy. I'm not a fan of this like weird split cover with this floating head here. Not really, the most appealing cover, but it is still a major key. First Norman Osborn. We do see him obviously prior as Green Goblin a few times, but this is where we're introduced to the character in his, regular, normal form. Grabbed this one from Very Gary and got a good price on it, so no complaints there. Now, speaking of Very Gary, I did a trade with him, so let's get into the trades, and I actually had a video from the show of the trade as it was happening. Gary came up to my booth and expressed interest in my first appearance of Firelord, which I had marked at $250. I told him I wanted some ASM, and he told me that would be okay. Just pick out $250 worth of ASM books. And we made the trade. I ended up with ASM 32, 47, and 62, filling in my collection nicely. The next trade that I made involved a book that was pretty hot this week, and that is Swamp Thing number 37, the first appearance of John Constantine. We got news this week, seemingly out of nowhere, that they're doing a Constantine sequel after almost 20 years since the release of the first movie. I'm very surprised about it, but I'm also very excited, and so was the guy sitting next to me, and that was Lenny, aka Keystone Comics 717. Check him out on Instagram. He really wanted that book, but didn't want to pay the price that I had on it, so he offered a partial trade, partial cash. I did find a book that I did want from him, so I picked this up and reduced the the cash amount that I wanted for the Constantine book. This right here is Department of Truth number 1, first printing. I have a couple of these already, nice high grade ones, of course, since this book came out, 2 years ago. And I think this book has lots of potential. It definitely spiked up a bit, but has since calmed down. And I think it's a great read and would make an awesome adaptation. Plus, really cool cover art on pretty much every single one of the issues in this run. So that ended up being pretty good for both of us. And I hope that Lenny is happy with his new book. Next up on the trade deck, I ended up trading away a Hardware number 80. Now, this is a pretty rare book. Had a print run of less than 10,000. It is the last book. Wait, hold on a second. I said number 80. I meant number 50. I had it priced at $80. That's what I was thinking. Hardware number 50, last book of the run. You saw me pick it up recently from a dollar bin. So this was a really good pickup. But someone came along, and that person was Darth Richards. You can find him on Instagram. Check him out. He came along. He really wanted that book. He had actually seen it in the preview video that I did with 3 Men in a Basement. And as it turns out, he wanted that and a couple other things, and he had this book for trade right here, and I wanted it, so I gave him the Hardware book as well as a couple other books from my dollar bin to equal the value of this book right here. We got Spider-Man number 1, the hip-hop variant cover. This is from the Miles run of Spider-Man, obviously, as it says on the cover. And this is an homage to my favorite hip-hop album of all time, Illmatic by Nas. Just hands down one of the best records by one of the best rappers ever. Anyway, grabbed this, and we were both very happy with what we got, so thumbs up all around on that trade. Now, the last trade, it was actually multiple steps. I started off with this book right here on my wall. This is Batman Beyond #1, and it is a newsstand. If you remember recently, I showed it off on Instagram. I actually picked up 2 of these in a collection recently, and I was willing to let one of them go. Now, this is a pretty rare book. Batman Beyond #1 is really popular, and the newsstand probably was, certainly was less than 5% of the total print run, because this book came out in 1999, and newsstand printings were not nearly as plentiful at that time. I had the book on my wall for $1,000. Someone came along and offered me partial trade, partial cash for this next book. It was Edge of Spider-Verse #2, the first appearance of Spider-Gwen in a 9.6. And I was happy to do that. I got some cash out of it and got this, what I consider to be a blue chip GRAIL key, major key, whatever you want to call it, from the modern age, in a very high grade, 9.6. And I was happy with the trade. I got a little bit of cash out of it, plus this book that, had a lower value than the one that I had up on the wall, but the cash ended up, making it even. Basically, I got $250 cash plus this book. Less than an hour later, someone came along asking for this book right here, first appearance of Spider-Gwen, and I said, hey, I've got this one. It is a 9.6. I'm asking, I was asking $800 on it, and he came along and said, yeah, I want it. Can we do partial trade? And I said, wow, that's funny. Another person asking for a trade. And he pulled out an absolute grail of mine and offered me this book plus cash. We discussed the amount, and we ended up settling on the deal. That book is right here. Maximum Carnage #1. It's only a one-shot. This was a promotional book. This was not something that was readily available. You had to send away for this book. In fact, there are under 300 copies on the CGC census over all grades and all labels. So that is including, there's a couple restored copies on there. There's a bunch of signature series copies on there. I don't think there's any qualified ones, but out of all of them on the census, there are less than 300 of this book, and there are less than 200 at a higher grade than this 7.5. And usually think 7.5 for a modern book, not very expensive, but guess what? This book holds a ton of value due to its scarcity. It's an absolute grail of mine. I would have to think that there are less copies of this out there than the original book that I started with, that Batman Beyond #1 newsstand. So I think I did a really great 2-step trade to get a grail of mine and, a bunch of cash as well. I ended up getting $300 plus this book for the first appearance of Gwen Stacy. And I'm beyond excited about having this. The only way I would ever get rid of this book is if I were to upgrade to a higher grade copy. 7.5, certainly respectable, but I would love to have a 9.0 plus. That would just absolutely, get me so stoked. I think there were only 20 copies in a 9.8. Of this book on the census, and that's including all label types, signature series, and I think one of them was restored. So if I remember correctly, that means that there's only 19 that are, real 9.8s, because, a restored copy is not going to hold nearly as much value. Anyway, I had a great time at King Kon. I definitely hope to be a seller there again. I let Greg and Mike know that I am down for the next one if there's space available. In fact, I said I'll take 2 tables next time if they're if they're available, because I'll have much more inventory ready and priced by that point, since this one was such a last minute addition for me. But yeah, shout out to those guys. Shout out to all the dealers and the friends that I saw there, new people that I've met in the community. Really great time, and cannot wait for the next one in spring. So make sure you like this video and leave a comment on it on the way out. And until next time, turn the page, wash your hands.